it's not an uncommon scenario when loved ones are faced with the very emotional decision of choosing suitable care for a family member who are faced with an ongoing challenge in dealing with life, or an elderly member who also requires personal care and safe accommodation away from their traditional aged care providers is what we're talking about today. There are positive and dignified choices, which is just great to see this movement taking place. And joining us now, and I welcome Howard Emery, CEO of Adelphi Living, with over 30 years experience. You don't look that old.
Thank you.
Howard, experience in disability care, who saw a gap in the system, which has been, people have been questioning this for years, haven't they? And it requires a centred approach, as we know, to satisfy participants' needs. Very important in living with dignity. Don't you agree?
Thanks, Jenny. Yes, absolutely.
30 years, and you've seen sort of, I suppose it's been a bit stagnant, hasn't it? Aged care, disability care, without sort of thinking about what really is the ideal for them. And now we're looking at this concept taking place.
Yes, we're very fortunate in Australia where Julia Gillard actually announced the NDIS scheme for Australia. It's all come originally from the United Nations, and they're the genesis of all care and disability services that go throughout the world. So that's what's happened to Australia, and of course there's been an awful amount of funds and time and energy put into it. So
the funding's important, isn't it?
It's vital.
Yeah.
We're one of the few countries in the world that actually look after our people with disabilities as we do.
Let's look at the concept. Let's reflect a little bit on what's been available, particularly in aged care. I mean, there's a lot of facilities that just do a wonderful job. There's a lot of areas, of course, where there have been staff problems, and a lot of people that have been in aged care that weren't the over 65s. They were young people that had to be in there. And I guess probably up until now, and to you guys doing what you're thinking of, what you are doing, has been a real problem, a real issue for these people.
It has indeed, and over many years I've experienced looking after residents in aged care at the age of 18, 19 and 20 years of age. So, and it's not ideal to have people with such a big age gap, and the ability to care for them and give them the life that they wanted just wasn't really there.
The families must really feel it if they're not happy.
Oh, they have, and they worry very much. But with the NDIS, we're able to take participants over the age of 18 and under the age of 65 into new purpose-built homes, which we have access to, with private en-suites, etc., where the participants, they turn from residents to participants with us, and they have a maximum of 3 people in the house. So it's a beautiful life. And indeed, on the weekend, I was in one of the homes with 3 participants who've come from aged care to us, and the families are there, and they're all chatting, and the participants are having a wonderful time.
Well, the homes, I've seen photographs. They fit into the suburbs around Perth, which is a beautiful thing. They feel they're part of the community. And when you say only 3 people, that's got to be something that they feel like it is more of a home for them. And is it correct? You've got a full-time carer, haven't you, 24 hours with them?
Yes, each participant of care needs are different, and some may have 2 people with them 24/7. Some may just have certain hours of the day depending on their care needs. So they have a life plan, and so we engage the staff for each participant, not as a group. Yeah. So each person has their own dedicated staff at certain times of the day, and no, they don't share that with anybody else.
I've been speaking to friends whose families are in aged care or in special care, and they have big concerns about qualifications of carers. Now, with this concept, what have you done about that?
Well, our philosophy is to have people with a Certificate 3 in disability or working closely towards it, and we help them with that. They have to be medically competent, and there's quite a few other services that they need to be trained and educated in. So we assist them to do that. We don't employ people without that training.
So in the home at the moment, how many homes have you got already?
We've got 15 homes.
Already? Wow,
yes.
that's fantastic.
And growing.
Widespread? What sort of suburbs have you got
we started in Mandurah, which is Erskine and Meadow Springs. We've moved to Baldivis. We're now into Maddington. We're building in Midland, Banksia Grove, north of the river, Attadale, Thornley.
You'd have a lot of inquiries,
Belmont.
I bet. Oh, that's
Yes.
so good.
And we have apartments being constructed as well.
Now, that is an interesting concept. I mean, we're looking at apartment blocks going up everywhere over Perth at the moment in suburbs, and, you know, that's the population growth and all that sort of thing. So when you say apartments, what do you offer people that have special needs, especially if they're a high-rise?
The apartments are for one person, one participant.
Okay.
So they're individual.
That's special.
And there are people that can't live with others or choose not to live with others, and NDIS is very generous in the way that it looks at that. So we would employ the staff particularly for that participant.
Yeah. I think that's important.
Very high support needs, or right down to just fully accessible.
Now, like you keep saying, and it's obviously true, that every participant has special needs and things that keep them happy, keep them mentally stimulated. So the carer's role would be to provide that as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. So our goal, having studied the NDIS to see what they wanted the outcomes to be for participants, is to give them the choice and control, each participant. Said respectfully to the old state scheme, I don't think it actually gave the participant that choice and that control.
Individual choice, that's right, yeah.
So, and that comes at two levels. First of all, they can choose their provider. They can choose to leave the accommodation that they're in at the moment and come to a brand new beautiful home in a perhaps more convenient location.
Give us a couple of instances where you've had people that have moved away from aged care, which of course is holding a lot of people at any one time, and not individual attention, which I think families would love to see them get. So what are a couple of instances?
Well, we have two homes in Mandurah, which are in Erskine, which care for people under the age of 65 who've come from aged care. In fact, one from Adelaide and one from Sydney.
Wow.
To come and join their families coming out of aged care.
And they were younger. They shouldn't have been really in aged care, should they?
That's right.
Yeah.
And there is a mandate that there's 600 people under the age of 65 in aged care at the moment that need to transition to the NDIS, to our sort of accommodation.
Would they have NDIS where they are at the moment, and can that be transferred if they wish to move to something like this?
Under the aged care scheme, they would be they're registered for aged care only, but they may have had an acquired injury and they qualify straight away for NDIS.
Okay. So what I'm getting at then is people have only ever thought about the options that have been there for very many years, but have been a little bit concerned about the happiness and if they can go and visit on a regular basis, which in your particular properties they can, of course.
Yes.
So what would be the initial thing that they need to do if they would like to look at this?
Well, they could contact us for a start. That would be one good idea, but they really need to contact the NDIS, perhaps their doctor first, and then see if they can qualify for NDIS. And if they're in aged care and under the age of 65, they will qualify.
What would be the criteria for NDIS? I'm sure it's fairly broad, because it could be somebody that's had an accident and brain injury. It could be somebody with something that's happened at birth, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Is it very stringent? Is it very difficult?
I don't think it is. Because it's new, it is difficult to navigate, and the people that are supposed to help you, they're learning as well.
Oh,
so
dear.
We all have
that frustration at the start. Yeah.
We have to be patient. But yes, it could be an acquired injury or something that's happened at birth, which is very sad.
Yeah.
Indeed, we have another fellow with us who has been ill and not well since birth, and his family are really enjoying his accommodation and time with us. But it is actually their home. So NDIS tell us it's their home.
That's so good.
So we can't restrict practices of what they want to do. They tell us when they would like to get out of bed, what time in the morning.
Oh, how wonderful to give back their decision-making.
Decision-making, yes.
Oh, that is amazing. You know, if anyone has any questions for Howard, don't hesitate to call 94841927. We'll take a quick break and come back. Talking to Mr. Howard Emery, CEO of Adelphi Living, which is a whole new concept for care for people that maybe are in aged care at the moment, but the families and themselves are particularly not that really happy with where they are, and that can be the case. It's an honesty. I mean, that is true. You often hear it, and you often read stories about people aren't happy, and, you know, the participant has to be content, relaxed, because if they're not, the families suffer, don't they, Howard?
Agreed.
I've spoken to so many people that have aged parents or a child that's, really going to have care for the rest of their lives. And they worry about when they get older as parents, what's going to happen to their child.
Yes, they do. And in fact, I've been through a situation recently with my father in aged care, and my experience was excellent. Because I actually helped develop that aged care facility in my previous life, and I still know some of the staff, and they're wonderful. But you do care, you do worry. When you're not there, you wonder. And but I think under the scheme that we're under now, it is so nice to see people actually getting entertained, being well fed when they want to, well dressed. And the time's there for them, and it is disappointing that aged care perhaps can't match the quality
well,
of
it's
the
the
service.
Staffing as well. I mean,
Yes.
when you're talking about living in a residential property, you've only got 3 participants and you've got an aged carer, not an aged carer, a carer, looking after everybody. I mean, that's personal attention. It's like having a family.
Yes, well, we could have one carer for each of the participants at one time.
It's a choice.
Absolutely.
So what about the funding here? I mean, for somebody to consider that for their family member, how do they find out? They go to their general practitioner, you said, first of all, to find out about this. The next step would be, is it through the government, obviously?
Yes, to get in touch with NDIS and to make sure that they can be assessed for the services that they need. If they do have a disability, they'll already be recognised by NDIS. And if they're under the age of 65, they're more than welcome to leave it at any time if they find something more suitable.
Yeah.
But it really does feel like a home. I can't stress that enough.
Well, there's a sort of things that the carer does through the week because they're there, they're living with these people. Oh, and before we move on to what they can get to do throughout the week, how do you get them compatible, the people that are living in the home together? Because some person might be messy and drop the wet towel on the floor, and the other person might not like that.
You wouldn't want to be living with me, I can see that.
No, I hate wet towels on the floor.
Certainly compatibility is a big thing, and we do look at the life plan of each participant and look at their age, and we do look at that from a document perspective, and then we invite them and their families to meet the other participant and their families, and they discuss and talk. And
that's compatibility.
If it's not going to work, then that's okay, because we have numerous houses and we can move them to another home.
It's as easy as that, isn't it?
It's as easy as that, yeah.
Oh, look, that's incredible. And to keep you mentally stimulated, doesn't matter what your disability or age would be, is really important. To fill your day, feel as though you're accomplishing something. And I guess you find out what their interests might be. They might have a small job. Some of them get taken to work.
Some of them do. We have one fellow that works for a landscaping group a few hours a week, and he gets picked up and...
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, so they're all very unique. We're all
what different. I want to hear about is the great side of this whole thing where people are so happy that they've moved away from a huge establishment. And I'm not knocking the big establishments.
No.
There's a lot of us getting to that age. So just keep a house ready for us, will you? How are they... Because you've got a few homes now. What are most of them saying?
I think it's the husbands or the wife or the families that the happiest.
That's the thing, the carers, the family carers that have been a carer probably for a very long time, to know that they are happy.
Exactly. Visiting hours, there's no such thing, you know. I mean, you wouldn't be visiting at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, but you visit any time. You can take your family member out any reasonable time, so long as we know. So it is literally their home.
Now, purpose-built?
Purpose-built with assisted bathrooms for everybody, which is a huge leap forward from the old scheme, said respectfully, where they shared ablutions, etc.
Yeah.
And the bedrooms are just beautiful. We furnish them beautifully. They can do their own laundry if they can, or we do it for them.
Oh, I think it's great. It's been a long time coming. It really has. And I've always been hoping that you'd all get it right by the time I get there. So just keep working hard at it, will you, Howard?
I will.
So in the future, how many more independent homes do you plan to have?
We're looking at, that we have under construction, under design, another 30 homes.
Wow, that's a lot.
So we are going to be a significant
Well, you've got 600
operator.
people wanting to possibly look at alternative accommodation.
Absolutely.
600?
Yes, and we know the numbers and the demographics now, but we don't know what the future's going to look like, because the industry's just got to grow. And I think the government probably underestimated the numbers anyway, because there were really lovely people looking after their family members, but they get to an age where they can't, and now they're looking for that service.
And they don't want to be anxious about the fact that they are getting very elderly, and they're not going to become unwell or pass away, and what's going to happen to their adult child.
That's a major issue.
Yes, it is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's an ageing population. You've got quite a bit of work ahead of you.
Yes, thank you very much for reminding me.
Can I just ask you the basics then about finances? You say NDIS, right?
Yes.
They go to the contribution of the accommodation.
Well, yeah, the NDIS is absolutely amazing. So they will have an occupational therapist look at a participant's care needs and their life plan, what they want to do. And so they will create a roster for that participant, which is incredible, particularly if you're a high needs person with continuous oxygen and maybe enteral feeding, etc. All that's paid for by the NDIS.
All of it, the medical side of it.
Absolutely. So there is a contribution from the participants, which is about 25% of their disability pension.
Pension, yep.
And that's the only contribution. There's no...
Sounds good.
There's no hidden.
Look, I wish you well, Howard. We're going to hear a lot more about it. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Howard Emery, CEO of Adelphi Living. If you want any contacts, just give us a call right here, everybody.